Hello, Fred. Thanks very much for joining me again on the show for our annual chat.
Yes, thank you, Carl. Thanks for being asked again.
Yeah, no, I've been really looking forward to this. We've had some wonderful conversations before. One of the things that I wanted to ask you about, Fred, I know you have a deep connection and you still play the game and you still work on your game an awful lot. And this is a sort of, I suppose, big question really. But when you play golf now, what does a round of golf mean for you?
Well, I'm 72 now,
Wow.
even par. And there's a, if someone asked you, is golf a test or a gift? The answering that question for me, in the last decade or so, has been really clear. I have been gifted with the capacity to play. And so, given that, if I play inside of that context,
Mm.
there's the experience of appreciation, care for my other players, gratitude, curiosity, those kinds of things. If it's a test, which it was in my younger years, see, we believe, oh, if it's test, it's good, you really strive hard. No, I strive hard when it's a gift, just as hard.
Mm.
If you believe it's a test, there's a lot of worry and hope and self-image on the line. And I now, me far more than ever, I just have a deep appreciation for being out there. And I like the creativity of the game. I like the way the architect has asked things of me to play. It's almost like if I'm not saying I'm anywhere at this level, but if I were an artist, it's like painting shots in the sky out there.
Yeah.
And I just really appreciate my fellow players.
Mm.
So, and also whether I shoot higher or lower, according to my mind, it doesn't seem to have as much like should or shouldn't out of it. And when I get done, sometimes there's just this. I saw a play once, and when I was with my wife, when we got done, we just sat there because it was so amazing that we just had to appreciate that moment. And there's a lot of golf in that too. When you're done, it's like, wow, this is just so great.
Yeah.
And it was different than my youth. My youth was a lot about establishing my self-image as a golfer, proving myself. Getting approval was always huge.
Mm.
So maybe there's something about getting older that this need for approval, the need to be dangled on the string like a puppet to try to do things right for people is not so much there. And that's what I appreciate about it.
And do you think, Brad, that a lot of the sort of coping strategies that people try and use out on the golf course, be that the latest breathing technique or whatever it may be, that all of those in a way are doomed to fail if you see go through the context of a test rather than a gift?
That's a really good way of saying it, Carl. Yeah, programs are for failed purposes. It's like we have a program called the First Tee. It's great, but it becomes because golf is not as inclusive as it needs to be. So we have to have a program to make up for that.
Mm.
If you find that you need breathing techniques and all that's fine, and you have your pre-shot routine of your 10 little steps you go through, all that's fine. It usually means underneath it all, something is missing in the basic contextual way of which you're playing, that you have to do this stuff. And I was never for what's the right word? The formula before playing.
Mm.
You know, they have to, how many steps you have to take and how you look. I don't think we're designed that way.
No.
I think we're designed for uniqueness, and each shot gets a chance to play however you want to play it.
Mm-hmm.
See, there's a shot that people think they should hit. Then there's also a shot you really want to hit.
Mm.
And I just like to play shots I really like to see if I can do.
Mm.
And it's more fun. So I think what you just said is that because we have this issue, we all need all these coping techniques to somehow survive through it.
Mm.
But underneath all of that, what's there? And how do you play with real freedom? I don't know so much about joy, but let's at least have satisfaction. How can you have peace of mind even when you retreat from par to double bogey?
Mm.
See, because I know it's going to happen.
Yeah, that's the
I mean,
reality.
and it's just so surprised. Like, this is not the life I should be living. Something is wrong here. Every game should get better. My practices should build on each other. And there's something amiss with life that all of a sudden I'm in the woods. No, this is what it is.
This is the deal.
Yeah. And I think I could realize that this is the life I should be living. This is what I can learn from. Then it's different. It's fun to play. I mean, I think people believe that in some place or some planet somewhere, people are hitting it down the middle on the green and 1 and 2 putting. It's like believing in the Easter Bunny and the Tooth Fairy and Santa Claus.
Yeah,
that's not going to happen.
Yeah. What would you say though, Fred, for playing devil's advocate on that? That you've got a young guy who's 25 listening to this, and he's trying to qualify for Karl and Fred Tour, or he's trying to make a living out of the game. What would your take on that be, to sort of perhaps assist them seeing that game in a different perspective, when almost everything in life is influencing them in the other way, that creates a test on not every single round, but every single shot?
Yeah. It's like we have group think. If everyone believes it, it must be true.
Yeah.
And I would ask them, what's your happy ending? How do you want to turn out? Who do you want to become as a human being? And most people have never been asked anything like that. They'll say, I want to be hitting my driver well and putting good. So take a pause a second. You as a person, how do you want to end out? So you get on the Korn Ferry Tour, and maybe you make the regular tour, and you're in and out. And so you're 37 years old and you're retired, and now you have another 60 years of your life. Great, it's fine. What do you want from that? And having people really look at what is the purpose for their life. What gives them really aliveness and joy? We don't get asked that question very often.
No.
And if a person really looks at that, how do you want to play? Do you want to be this person suffering? I mean, I've read enough golf books about golfers. And my experience is, they say, I will suffer to get a result. I will go through anxiety and fear and doubt and the whole thing. And as long as I can get up there and play in a golf tournament. And is that what you really want? What would happen if life were to be joyful and challenging? But if you get to play in let's say in the qualifying of the Korn Ferry Tour, to really say, this is the challenge I signed up for. This is what I love. This is home for me. Let me play, rather than, please God, let me not shoot even par so I don't blow myself out in the first round. So I would ask someone to look at larger questions, the answering of which could make a difference in their lives. See, if our lives aren't working, our questions are too small.
Right.
And almost no one has I'm not sure, the permission to ask someone bigger questions. I mean, I want to be a great playing partner for my friends. I intend to be a person who lives life more in gratitude rather than in fear. And to think I have to prove myself every day really means that I don't think I'm enough and something's wrong with me. How about if I live my life that the way I am is enough, and I'm okay the way I am, and I get to express the way I am? It's just different. I mean, I've had many people come and say, let's take a young golf pro who said, I want to be the best teaching professional player in Northern California.
Right.
And I said, okay, great. How many hours will that take you this year, do you think? And he says, well, about 700. Terrific. Suppose it's this year, next year, this time, you've spent 700 hours. And everybody says, well, aren't you great? You are the top player as in the teaching professional in California. Now what? So what will that give you? And, it's like, did you ever see a movie called The Natural? It was a baseball movie
No,
with Robert Redford.
No.
So he spends his whole life just wanting to be a really great baseball player. And his girlfriend asked him, what do you want from all this? He goes, I want to walk down the street and have people say that's the best, that he's the best that's ever played. Mm. Now, this was a short story before it was a movie. And in the short story, the writer, who was a great writer, had him strike out in his last at bat because he knows he hasn't learned anything about life. If all he wants is other people's approval.
Right. Mm.
But in the movie, they have him hit a home run because it's a Hollywood thing and everything turns out great. Mm. See, that's why I like books are way more interesting, because movies have to sell a certain thing.
Yeah.
So, I mean, Karl, when you and I finally hand in the skin bag, you know, when, let's say you're 100 years old,
I'll take 80 for now, Fred.
Okay, they're going to ask you, how'd you like it? What'd you learn in life? You know, they didn't ask you how many people did you impress in life. All right. So anyway, that's what I would say with someone. Let's leave with the bigger questions, because I find if you deal with the bigger questions, the game improves way more than if you just deal with this, please God, can I learn how to compress a 4-iron?
And as you say, Fred, I think as you go in the opposite direction, as the questions get smaller and smaller, like, you know, am I putting force into the ground, or am I shallowing it, and all this kind of stuff, the panic grows and grows, doesn't it? Because you're never really going to get anywhere other than disappearing down the rabbit hole of the next fix or the next teacher or the next coach, unless you enlarge on these bigger questions.
Well, also because of that, I'm going to do the right word, that panic or that need, you're unable to pay attention. Mm. See, attention is the superpower.
Yeah.
The capacity to be present over time to something that you've never been present to before. And when you have playing golf, let's suppose that I'm gonna take a little jump sideways and then come back. See, you always get what you practice. And rarely do people know what they're actually practicing. If you're practicing on a range, hoping if you hit it well, people will approve of you and you'll look good, and what you're actually practicing is fear and disapproval. Mm. People don't know that. They'd say, oh, I'm actually practicing my hip turn and my follow through. No, actually, you're practicing fear. Mm. Suppose you see people complain and they become really masterful at complaining. Mm. And they would never say, I'm practicing complaining and I'm now a scratch complainer. Mm. They say, I'm a realist. I'm just blowing off steam. No, they become great at it. It's like strengthening a bridge in such a way that it gets so strong. The neural networks now conceive of life only through complaints. Yeah. And if you're practicing, hoping to show people you're good enough, the way you think about yourself is that I'm not good enough yet. Yeah. Something's wrong with me. Mm. So we get that. See, where you put your attention determines the quality of your life. Yeah. And if you're putting your attention on hoping and wanting, what you're getting is fear and doubt. Mm. And we always get what we practice, always. Mm. And rarely does anyone know what they're practicing. And by the way, very few people in the driving range actually practice golf. They practice hope and wanting and clutching and judgments about oneself. Mm. And something's wrong. So they get it. Mm. And we're not trained to someone say, where is your attention right now? Yeah. You know, my attention is now, as I hope I hit the ball well, so you will like me. Mm. Okay, so you're practicing self-disapproval. Oh, I don't see that till now. Mm. We're very complex and mostly mysterious to ourselves.
And the coach is very often in that loop as well, isn't it? In that same trance.
The coach is usually in hope that if they hit it well, they'll like the lesson, they'll like the coach, and things will turn out in the way that they want. Mm. So, I mean, it occurred to me through someone coaching me about 40 years ago that the student learns through their experience and not through my words.
Yeah.
Not through my concepts, not through my information. The experience is the great teacher. So on a driving range, how can I be that the student has a greater sense of their experience than they would be if I wasn't there? Mm. And I mean, by learning is a sense of self, others, or the world, greater a sense of that, awareness of that. And most of the time, the student is on the range trying to please the teacher, trying to fit the teacher's model, and trying to remember something, thinking that the memory of it is more important than the experience they're actually having. Mm. Lessons are complex, and rarely are they done in such a way that the student walks away with a massive degree of self-coaching, more than they ever have. Mostly they walk away with the information and trying to implant the teacher's model in their head. Yeah. And they have right and wrong comparison to that model. And once you have a model, you're mostly unable to really pay attention. Mm-hmm. You know, it's like we should walk around with little bands on our wrist that says WWTD. What would Tiger do? You know? Yeah. You know, it's like, so, I mean, this is my 50th year of coaching now. Mm-hmm. And no one in 50 years has ever come and said, I have everything I need. I'm whole. I'm complete. What I like is some awareness that I haven't noticed yet, and lead it out of me. Lead out the swing that is innate to me. Mm-hmm. Lead out the swing that follows my instincts. See, I just want to be myself because I know I'm enough.
Because we've evolved, haven't we, to use implements and tools and move objects to targets. And we've been doing that for millions of years.
Yes. One of the things that really made a difference in my coaching, it was like 40 years ago. I went to a workshop. It was a master of martial arts was leading this workshop. Right. So he's 140 pounds. And he says, could two people please come up on the stage? Took the two biggest guys. He put his arm straight out. And he said, would you bend my arm at the elbow? And these two big guys couldn't bend his arm. So he stops and he says, I would need a volunteer. So I volunteer. I go up on stage. He says, put your arm out and try to stop the two guys from bending it. And of course, they bend it in 1 second. So he says, all right, come back with me. He takes me backstage. And he says, imagine your arm is a beam of light extending to infinity, and the beam of light can't be broken. So I did that, practice it. He brings me back out on stage. The two big guys go to bend my arm and they can't bend it. And I am thinking this is so weird while they're trying to bend my arm. Mm-hmm. So we all stop and I go, what the heck was that? And he said, what did you do the first time? And I said, well, I tightened everything I could to stop them from bending it. And he said, what'd you do the second time? I said, I just imagined my arm as a beam of light. And he said, all you really need to keep your arm as strong as possible are two small extensor muscles on either side of the elbow. Every other muscle you use sabotaged you, weakened you. Right. And it really made an impression on me because the number one cause of error in golf, bar none, is over tightening of muscles you don't need. Yeah. And here's the deal. No one can ever tell you what muscles you need to play golf. It is literally impossible to find out which of these 600 muscles, tendons, ligaments you need to tighten and loosen at certain times. So that's your basic golf lesson. People believe I can tell you what to do and make you able. Yeah. And by the way, I was just reading a study by the University of Munich that says they've been trying to map how people walk. And this is a very complicated process. And they said they haven't been able to do it yet. In walking, you actually have a double bounce in the kneecap in one step. There's the plant, the heel, and then the roll, and then this, and the ankle snap back, and then double bounce in the kneecap. Yeah. They haven't figured out why human beings are the only species that has a double bounce in the kneecap. So no one actually can tell you how to walk. Now, if you take that and extrapolate it, how are you supposed to be able to square a club face while keeping a club on plane while shifting your weight if you don't? And yet people try because they believe that I know what I'm doing and I can tell you what I'm doing.
Yes. Yeah.
And it is impossible, by the way.
Mm.
You know, if someone said to you, Karl, on the start of your downswing, I want you to tighten your deltoid for 1/20th of a second, no, for 1/5 of a second at 50%. Then your Tiresias major for 1/2 of a second at 65%. And then your supraskeptical or whatever. Now that would be real mechanics.
Yes.
Real mechanics.
Yeah.
But it would just completely fry your brain. It's impossible to do.
Mm.
So, I mean, I've thought about this problem for years. Why is it that somebody keeps doling on information, and yet at some level, with these millions of people doing this around the world, learning does take place?
Yes.
You can't deny it.
Yeah.
So I think what happened is that the body in its brilliance sifts through all these concepts and information and gets the kernel of a direct experience. And it learns through this small kernel, even though it's swamped with information and concepts. Mm. And I think that's the million years of evolution and genius that we are. See, when I first started, I thought it was 1974. I thought I was the solution.
Mm. The man with the answers.
It took me years to realize that maybe I'm the problem.
Yeah.
Mm. So it's a complex thing.
It's a complex thing, Fred, isn't it? And you know, you've seen it, and I've seen it with, you know, big events, tournaments, PGA Tour, DP World Tour, and things like that. And I've often wondered, when you see these guys doing well, are they doing well in spite of the information that they've given, as opposed to because of it?
I don't know, but there is something that, you know, it's a crazy sport where people on Social Security compare themselves to the best in the world, 65-year-olds, and try to produce their things. I think there's just something about some people can learn how to learn. They're almost like body geniuses. And they, even in the midst, I mean, Tiger Woods' father said it didn't matter who was his coach.
No.
But it played curling no matter what, you know? So I think there's just something about the capacity to be present especially in difficult situations, that some people don't even know they have, but they do. And, you know, I hung around Mo Norman, and he came to one of our workshops, by the way. It was very interesting.
Did he?
Yeah, he just sat there, and I realized I have one of the golf geniuses sitting in our workshop. What questions can I ask him to illuminate this? So there was two of us, and one of our coaches said, Mo, do you know what makes you so good? And he had his clubs next to him, and he pulls out his driver, and he points to the head of the driver. He says, because I know where this guy is all the time.
Wow.
And he says, Mo, are you connected to the target? He goes, like a silver dollar. So he couldn't explain why he was great, even though he tried through some things. But there's just something that Mo had. And maybe it's because I think he had Asperger's or something. He could be more present where most people are absent. See, the capacity to be here in this moment now, experiencing things through your senses rather than trying to through your intellect, is the greatest, as I said earlier, the greatest superpower that a human being can have. Some people seemed, by how their life worked out, to be more present than others. But in a golf lesson, when you realize that someone learns through their experience and not through your words, the whole point is to have them be here. Can you feel the face of the club, not just the head? And where does the face of the club begin to close? And over time, people can start to sense these things, as long as they're not trying to please you or hope they get it right or worry if this shot is the one that's going to make them feel confident for the member guest or all that kind of stuff. So a golf pro's job is to create an environment without evaluation or judgment, in which it's safe to have new experiences replace these old beliefs. And I don't see it done well very often.
And I remember taking your school 25 years or so ago, Fred, and that was the thing that struck me first of all, was to begin to understand for the first time that you can't change anything unless you know what is. You have to experience what's going on right now before you try and change anything.
It's so simple what you just said, Carl, but it's so brilliant. I mean, your first thing your GPS tells you on your car is where you are.
Yeah.
We're trying to always get somewhere, but without any experience where we are, you know? I mean, suppose someone stepped to the first tee, and then instead of saying, oh, I hadn't played in a while, I got new clubs, or my dog kept me up, they said, I'm going to do everything I can to try to win your approval so you like me, and therefore I will like myself better. I mean, it would be honest at least. I mean, it would be ridiculous.
Be a showstopper, that, wouldn't it?
Yeah, but it's just, we are just so mysterious. Yeah. Yes. So the golf professionals believe they need to be trained in the new techniques. They need to be trained in using the equipment better. They need to be trained in how to use social media. Very few people say, I'm going to learn how to create an environment, even with myself, in which it's safe to explore without worrying about my self-image. I have to learn how to listen to people in such a way they feel they're gotten and seen, so they can relax and go on to a new conversation rather than being worrying about, am I actually being, experienced here? There's, how can I learn as a golf pro to be authentic and share my journey actually, rather than pretend I've got things handled so students really think I do, so I look good to students. See, it isn't the plateau. Most golf pros games have plateaued. It isn't the plateau that's the problem. It's the cover-up and the pretense. See, being honest, because I'm just like all my students. I want to play a better game. I want to have joy and freedom and satisfaction. I want to be a great playing partner. We're all the same. When you realize we're all the same, we're just at different places along this journey, then we can have this honest conversation with people. How do you coach golf professionals to be committed to something bigger than themselves? Bigger than their own, trying to get a better job or more money or lurk less
followers
time.
Or whatever. Yeah.
So those things I think have value, and I think they make life really great for people. But we aren't taught that in the first grade or the second grade, to honor a commitment, to learn how to create an environment, to have compassion for other people who aren't having a great life. We're not taught that. We're supposed to have this wisdom and fortitude by just chance in life. See, in my experience, school was not at all useful for the great endeavors of life. I mean, I really got that my chemistry teacher was not a passionate scientist, and my English teacher was not a poet, and my civics teacher was not someone deeply involved in politics. They were repeating, nice people, they were repeating pre-thought thoughts that someone had given them, mostly like golf teachers are repeating now. What did Butch Harmon say? What does YouTube say? And to actually stop and say, what do I know to be true for me at this point? And then express that to people, I think starts an honest exploration. And things happen differently.
So on a practical level, Fred, for anybody listening who's perhaps new to this kind of conversation, what would your thoughts be on the next practice session, exploring the club face or centeredness of strike or whatever it may be?
Yeah. Well, let's suppose that in any sport or any business, there are some basic principles you could call basic fundamentals or basic awarenesses. Golf has about 5. And any damn fool, including me and you, who experiences these things really can play a nice game. And doesn't have to feel like, oh, I don't know who's going to show up today and all that other kind of stuff people say. Where's the club face? When you have a sense of the club face, you can pretty much get a sense of how the ball's going to curve if you can really pair it with the path. So path is another thing. Be able to feel where the shaft is, but it's so amazing. Someone can play 50 years and not know the club's coming over the top. Like, where have you been for the 150,000 swings you've made? Another one could be, where am I pointed? I mean, you get on the first tee and you sit behind it, and people tee off, you almost don't even know where the fairway is. People are, feet are right, shoulders are left, etc. So another one could be, what musculature is needed for letting go and freedom? How much is too much and how much is too little? We used to do about having people throw golf clubs in comparison, do a baseball swing in comparison, toss a ball in comparison, hit a ball, roll, but you start to feel your body. Almost everybody tightens up way more than what's needed. But the one that actually changes golf more than anything else is solid contact. What is the experience that allows you not to have confidence in solid contact? I don't like confidence. I think it's a waste of time. But to trust solid contact. See, when you really trust it, and trust is elemental, when you really trust something, you don't have conversations about it.
No.
See, the problem with confidence, I know I've diverted a little bit, but I think it's useful. The problem with confidence, it means if I've had success in the past, and I believe I will have success in the future. So given that, if I hit a shot, my confidence generally crumbles. Trust means I get how things work, how the experience of it all is. And I can dance with my body each day because it changes. And I can really get a sense of how it works each day. Like I trust my walk and I trust my eating. If you're at a certain age, you get up at night sometimes to go to the bathroom and you kind of do the duck walk, but you still make it there. So you know how to do it. You trust that. So there are some basic experiences that if one does experience them and have a certain ownership over them. See, there are some things in life, understanding them, even getting the answer for them, believing them, are all equally worthless. You have to experience things for yourself, create them for yourself. That gives them real value and a certain ownership over it. I remember it was like 20 years ago, and Tiger Woods said there are only two people who own their swing, Ben Hogan and Mo Norman. I thought, well, how about Byron Nelson and Mickey Wright and all these people?
Bobby Jones.
And then the next question is, what is ownership of one swing? What does that mean? And how does one get to that? Which means it's just who I am. And that's a good thing we've been looking at for 25 years. I mean, to say this in a normal golf context, people think you're an idiot. And that would be, just be yourself. Everyone else is taken. And people say, well, I don't want to be myself. I suck. Well, underneath all the interference and all the habits that have been laid on top of you, there is something beautifully there that's repeatable for you and powerful for you. But no one believes it because all our lives, we've been taught that the way we are is not enough. Something's wrong with me. I should be better. Everyone looks at their golf swing like something's wrong. And if people can really get that the source of consistency is really just being yourself and letting go of all the stuff, then it's different.
But that Fred, is something then that you could play golf with a commitment to that. And I think,
Well, suppose, Karl, that you absolutely trusted yourself to hit it solidly. Then you can play to targets and shapes, play in front of you, out here in the world. But as that trust isn't there, you get to the top of the swing and everyone has this little moment of make sure. And because of that, see, if I'm telling myself these little magical phrases, like stay down, use the ground, follow the club, etc., it's because I doubt I can actually do it unless I tell myself to do it.
Yes.
So therefore, I am practicing doubt, 45 times full swing for 18 holes. And I'm getting exactly what I'm practicing, doubt. I mean, I have a cup in front of me. I just lifted this cup. Now, there's no how to do it, how not to do it. I just did it. And everybody says, well, golf is so complex. You need to go, well, there's a learning course about that. But they say the most complex human endeavor is walking downstairs. They haven't been able to teach any robot to do it accurately yet. And yet we do it so beautifully by the time we're 3, basically. So,
but if you think about that, Fred, because I think that's such an important point. If you think, thank goodness that we learned how to walk before we can talk. and we didn't have walking coaches as such. The baby learns by error, doesn't it? Falls to the left, falls to the right, falls forward, falls back, and it eventually organizes. The relationship a baby has to failure is one that we lose as we get older, isn't it?
Yes. So how do you create an independent, resourceful, a person who has a magnificent relationship to failing that it never stops them, human being? And that would be the object of a lesson. So someone who's self-coaching, resourceful, independent, strong, and when they fail, see, failure isn't optional. It's mandatory.
Yeah.
You must stretch. I mean, the baby who struggles the most to walk is the first walker. So, and yet we have this relationship to, we admire people who are out there and striving and learning and get on the edge, but then we abhor failure and mistakes as a society. We get down on people. Can you see the push-pull of it all?
Yeah.
So, I mean, one of the things about a golf lesson is to be able to have an extraordinary relationship to failure in your student, but you can only do that if you have an extraordinary relationship to failure in yourself. You can't give away what you haven't explored or in the process of developing. It's just inauthentic. It's a fake. So, when you tell people, now, come back, after you hit a bad shot, don't worry about it, just come back and really focus on the next one. Sounds so logical. But then the coach hits a bad shot and gets all mopey themselves until they hit a good one. So, see, most coaching should be coaching the guy you see in the mirror for yourself. Then it authentically goes to your students. Whether you're coaching concentration, peace of mind, the capacity to experience gratitude, anything. So you can't give it away unless you're in it. And I mean, I don't know about you, but we could stop and put on 100 videos now on YouTube of how to use the ground or how to shovel the club. And it isn't for lack of information that we have. And why is it that you go out to a driving range and even people who've watched those videos, and still a very high percentage of them come over the top, fall backwards, and so forth. So, see, I'm going to just chase this for a moment. Nobody does it with their practice swing, by the way. You ever seen a person fall backwards with their practice swing and stagger? So if they never do it with their practice swing and they do it with the ball, that'd be like me trying to be able to sing on Saturday in my room and I can't sing on Sunday in front of people. Would you teach me how to sing? So I did a talk for a group of people, and one guy asked, why can't I hit it with my practice swing? And I said to him, it's because your practice swing had never hit a ball on the golf course. One, it's slow. Two, the club face is usually open about 30 degrees. And three, the low point is way off and it wouldn't actually strike the ball. But it feels good. It feels comfortable. So you think you should hit it like that. So, see, if I work with a group of golf professionals, I say the following. There's nothing wrong with golf swings. People think you've lost your capacity to really look and see golf swings. But my experience has taken almost 30 years to complete for me, is I no longer see anything wrong with golf swings. Person swings. I'm in the question, I wonder what awareness is missing that would make all the difference. See, if a club face is open at the top and the person doesn't know it, they automatically will leave their weight back to give it more time to close. Then after a couple swings leaving their weight back, they'll hit it fat. Then they'll start coming over the top so they can hit further forward. So they'll come over the top, leave their weight back, cut across it, and they'll play kind of some sort of game. But the 7-iron will go 110 yards versus 140 yards. So it's from the initial blind spot that all the other things cascade beautifully down. And by the way, I could take the next half hour and talk about how it's true with life.
But that Fred, is a good example, isn't it, of the genius of the body doing the best it can with an open club face.
Million years of evolution, intensely brilliant. See, golf swings are simply blind spots, and then the solutions we make up.
Mm.
And the smaller and fewer the blind spots, the better the player.
Mm.
So I haven't got many conclusions in life, but that could be one of them. That the person who experiences more has a lower handicap sense of what's going on.
Mm.
See, the yips are mostly, I've done 9 workshops now with yips, stabs, and flinches. Usually a person has either the swing is too big on a chip, the club face is slightly open and they flinch it over like that,
yeah,
or their low point and center is off, and then they stab into the ground and they eventually pull up in the air like that. The chip, the yip, is a brilliant solution.
Yes.
That someone does in order to at least have a modicum of possibility. So, but it all starts with the context that human beings are able, and we simply lack awareness. And you know what you just said about, you know, how the body has figured out all the stuff. It does it in everything. You know, if my one leg is shorter than the other, it's not. But if it was, I would walk a certain way. If I believe I'm not good enough in life, when I'm 7 years old, I make that decision. I'm not good enough, and I'll try hard all the time, try hard for everything. I'll be an overachiever, but I'll never have satisfaction because I think I'm not good enough.
Yeah.
So golf is not a metaphor for life. Not metaphorical at all. It's a practical venue in which to see oneself if you're willing to look. So.
Just on that again, because it fascinates me, that idea of the practice swing.
Yeah.
What would then be a beneficial practice swing?
Well, the question always in a practice swing is where are you putting your attention?
Yeah.
Okay. It could be a person saying, I want to just experience how my muscles work and see if I'm over tightening it on the next swing. They may hit the ball 75 yards to the right because the face is open, but they could have exactly the same amount of tension. And that's the beginning. You know, next thing you work on the club face to find out where that is. But I mean, I'm always amazed that golf pros work on people's swings if they take a practice swing and they never fall backwards. And they try to get a person to shift their weight on the next swing when they hit with the ball. It's incredible to me that it's like, what are we actually dealing? What is the real issue here? You know, and I sense the first blind spot is always the one you got to work with. Yeah. It usually cascades into everything else, and from there. So, I mean, have you ever seen a person take a practice swing at the exact same speed they take a ball swing? I mean, usually it's slower.
Yeah.
And I've filmed enough club faces that almost no one takes a practice swing with a club face square. It's usually open. It's as much as 40 degrees in some people.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I coached one fellow who wanted to hit it with his practice swing, and he was bouncing his driver head about a foot behind the ball and thinking, oh, it just feels so good. And I told him, what's all the markings on the ground down there and the scratch marks in the bottom of your driver? Where do they come from? So, see, we believe things, and our beliefs are powerful. Yeah. They're more powerful, actually, than our experience. We'd rather live in our belief than what we're actually experiencing.
You mentioned before we got started, Fred, about what you want to do in the future, and you mentioned some ideas about helping young coaches and creating an opportunity for them to learn. What suggestions would you give for young coaches to sort of pursue some of these ideas that we're talking about?
Well, I would ask them, what would it take for you to have a great life if you're going to coach for 40 years? What do you have to develop in yourself? You know, because most coaches are, you know, they're anxious that their lessons work. They hope they get more lessons. They hope people like it. You know, even during the lesson, they hope they hit it well. And if a person's getting the shanks with 15 minutes left, they go into a panic. No, so do you want to live anxiously like that? And I've asked this question to maybe like 300 or 400 people. What would make you worth $400 an hour? And nobody has an answer. So you can see we don't value ourselves much. What would you have to learn, develop, grow that someone says, here's $400. It's the best hour I've ever had.
Mm.
Could you please sign me up for the next one as soon as possible?
Mm.
Until you can answer that, then you don't know where to go.
Mm.
Well, suppose you could alter someone's life, alter their relationship with their family, coaching them to learn how to learn so they can learn in any endeavor of life.
Mm.
How to find peace of mind in a game which is inherently over 50% mishits.
Mm.
See, I could talk about these things for like 15 minutes straight. But suppose a coach went through a journey that they could learn all of these things with themselves. I mean, even listening changes a life. And most people are waiting to talk, patiently waiting to talk. We think you're a good listener. So I would say that the journey teaches you, not this first information. And if you're willing to go through this journey, and at the other side, you may find yourself being a person who is just being a coach. It's authentic to them.
Yeah.
They don't have to try.
Yeah.
And first of all, just to say the difference between coaching and teaching is most people we have a different language probably. I mean, to me, teaching is I have information, model, and an answer, and I will make you able. So I'm going to put it into you.
Yeah.
Coaching could be, there's something you already are and something you already have. Let's lead it out.
Let's draw it out.
So, I mean, the word education, one definition is to lead out, educare. That's the way it starts. Mm. And we have had the buzzword of coaching in our profession for about 20 years now. And I don't see any coaches. Rare. Mm. Mostly it's just nice people telling you what to do.
Yeah. And
we think teaching is the first initial things to say, and coaching them is the development of the skill. Mm. And it's not anything that I don't think about. So, I mean, if I know that I'm standing in front of 1 million years of evolution, very possibly the genius of the universe right in front of me, how would I speak to this person?
Yeah.
I mean, even in my fingertips, there are 4 types of cells, different layers and different levels that make this thing a miracle. And then we say, oh, don't grip it too hard like you're holding a bird. And make, it's like me teaching Rembrandt how to paint a portrait, or Beethoven how to do a symphony. It's so reductive and simplistic. It's absurd. You can discover it, but I don't know how to do it.
Yeah.
I mean, and that's one thing I would say, that be able to say, I don't know. Mm. Mm. I mean, if someone asks me where the pro shop is, I'll say it's over there.
Yeah.
But if someone says, how do I start the downswing? I don't know, but we can discover something that's right for you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If
you say, well, the first thing you do is you compress in the ground while you flatten the club and you shoot, it's like, it sounds intellectually satisfying.
Yeah.
But in my experience, it never produces a lasting breakthrough.
Yeah. Which for a coach, it does require a suspension of ego, doesn't it? To put all of that on one side.
Yes, it's really good. It's like you want to be the source of the breakthrough, the right white knight riding in and say, that guy is smart. He's the golf doctor.
Yeah.
But when you can get that up and realize that the beauty is in the student, their discoveries, their take at, and to be able to be not the source of the breakthrough, but just part of the whole equation. If that gets to be satisfying, you're in pretty good shape. And we all want to be known and admired. And I mean, who doesn't want to be seen as smart? But what are you really after in a golf lesson? When I was at the first coaching and teaching summit, I gave a talk there. It was like 1 million years ago. And the guy who started it said, we're here to give good information to people and have them come to an understanding about how to play. And I stood up and I said, I don't think so, which was probably not the right thing to say. I said, we're here to have them learn. And what you're talking about may actually be an impediment to that. Mm. People learn through experience, through their senses. Mm. And I know they say, well, there's many different types of learning. There's intellectual, but until you actually feel a club face, really feel it, I can intellectualize all I want, but you're not going to be able to control the ball.
No.
I mean, if I put Novocaine in my feet, no matter what teacher I have, I will never tap dance.
Never dance.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So, see, I'm looking for people who have a realization that it's not, we all live inside of a certain principle, a certain box. Mm. And most people want to have the smartest person in the box. You know, when you go to a coaching and teaching summit, we look for the guy with the smartest information. Mm. See, when something is outside of your box, it seems like nonsense to you. Mm. But only real great breakthroughs come from something that would knock your socks down and is nonsense. Mm. And see, to be able to explore outside of the black box does not take intellect. It takes courage. Mm. Courage to create a context for yourself in which to, the context under which I coach is to have people experience their own extraordinary nature in a non-judgmental environment. Mm. That's it. Mm. And whenever I break down and want to look good and be right and be smart and have had the grand string theory of golf, and I see myself doing that, I could recommit back to what I said. Mm-hmm. Shut up. Yeah. And be there. So, what are you committed to? Are you committed to trying to get people's approval for the rest of your life?
Yeah.
Or
how long are you going to play that game for?
Yeah. It's tiring, by the way, because you can never get it enough. Mm. Mm. And we think we can. Mm. If I just get enough approval, if I finally win that major, then I'll be okay. Mm. I had a fellow call me up, his wife actually called. He won a senior Champions Tour major. Yeah. And she said he always wanted to win one to validate himself. He's won one now, and it's worse than ever. Yeah. He thinks he'll be known as a one-hit wonder now. Mm-hmm. So how much do you have to prove? That old Bob Dylan song, "How many roads does the man walk down before they call him a man?" That sort of thing. Mm-hmm. That song called "Blowing in the Wind." It's a brilliant song. But do we have to just keep proving ourselves every day? Mm-hmm. Or can we just be ourselves? Mm-hmm. And being self requires that one has a sense of self underneath all the noise. Mm-hmm.
But then on a golf course, Fred, from that position, then is that golf can be an expression of yourself rather than a definition of yourself.
I think that's a perfect way to say it. If golf is defining you, then each shot, your self-image goes like this. Yeah. But if golf, I can express spirit, joy, creativity, freedom. I can express myself like a painter can express himself, a dancer can express themselves. Mm. If that's true, it's a different game. See, I just played these 4 great golf courses in Sand Valley, and these are great architects, Bill Coore, Ben Crenshaw, Patok, and Malay Kidd. And I could begin to see, this is what they want me to do here. And this is where the challenge is. And this is where, this is where the sucker play is. And this is going to sound weird yet, but we live in a world that you are there and I am here. You are there and I am here. The world is all out there and I'm all in here. My experience is mastery doesn't live in that world. This is an hour-long conversation that I'm going to do in 30 seconds. Okay. So when someone is really masterful at something, they don't live in here and there. They live in a world called out here. They and the world are not separate. Mm. They are out here in the world rather than in their head thinking about the world. Mm. Whether it's Steph Curry dribbling a basketball, or whether it's someone being able to play great golf in the last 9 holes of a tournament. And that experience of living in the world, see, most people live their entire life where the world is not. Mm. They live it in this little space, okay? Mm. And thinking and worrying and hoping and fearing and happy and sad and all this stuff. Mm. And anybody I've ever seen really good at something, if you really see somebody like maybe a spiritual leader walking through an airport, they're out here rather than in here. Mm-hmm. And when you ever see a great golfer, football player, anybody, they live out here. Mm-hmm. And that's been, a major part of my practice for the last 20 years.
I know that I remember reading Pele, the great footballer, talked about that. He said the pitch and other players were just for him a complete environment. It was a dance and everything was going really slowly and he was just taking part in this dance. There was an inclusion. It wasn't me against them. It was a whole environment.
Where the inner world and the outer world are not different.
Mm.
They're just a world.
Mm.
Yes. See, I think that's my sense of what mastery is. And it also has something to do with creating context for how you choose to live your life. Mm. Rather than the beliefs you got from your parents or your friends or from what you've read. You have a choice about your life, how you choose to live. To me, that's the most exciting thing in my 50 years of coaching. Mm. When someone says, I've been living in fear and hope most of my life, and I choose curiosity.
Yeah, yeah.
See, to me, that change in context changes it.
Sorry to interrupt, Fred, but just it sparked something. Was it Einstein said that? This is sounding maybe cross tangent, but Einstein said was the most important question of all: is the universe friendly or not?
Well, Einstein's basic question was, what's it like to ride on a beam of light? Mm-hmm. And that question created relativity. See, there has to be some question that so sparks you that you wake up in the morning in it, And as a coach or as a player, what are your questions? Mm-hmm. Is it how can I get people to like me today so I feel better about myself? Well, that's one level of question. Mm-hmm. Or how can I learn how to learn? And why do I interfere with my performance so much? That's another level of question. Mm-hmm. It's more than how can I learn how to hit a wedge? How can I learn it all? And why is it after 30, 40, 50 years, I still chunk a ball? Something like that. Mm-hmm. So, yes. How do you have the widest question you can have and live in that? Mm-hmm. I mean, how can I have a great, peaceful life in which I contribute? Mm-hmm. It's a good question, I think. Mm-hmm. Because the happiest people I've ever seen are people who contribute in life. Yeah. People who serve in life. I mean, I've met people, in our profession, you meet people from all walks of life. And you ask, what is the source of satisfaction, happiness? And those who are serving, or those who are contributing, feel more alive than others. Mm. I mean, I want to tell you about I have two words that makes unhappiness. It's called trust fund. People who have trust funds are generally really unhappy. Yeah. Just live, what do I do with my money? Mm. I'm not making a blanket about everybody, no. but see the purpose of a coach could be not to get more lessons or get more money or do less work or get a better job or all those things. I'm going to say basically what it is that gives this person's life meaning. And I'm going to stand by this. To have meaning in your life, period. Find out what is wanted and needed and simply produce it. Yeah. Just find out what's wanted and needed and produce it. And you'll find that your life goes from I don't care and no, I don't count and I don't matter to my life has a purpose and meaning. Mm. I make a difference. I count. Mm. And when you have that, you just feel like, wow, life is great. Mm-hmm. And most golf professionals, by the way, feel like what they're doing really doesn't matter to their life. They don't go about their job as if their life depends on it. Mm. And what would make that difference? It's so simple. Find out what is wanted and needed and simply produce it. Yeah. And you'll handle all the mundane stuff in life after that easily.
The other things will fall into place, won't they?
Yeah.
Mm. Yeah. Mm. I think we've found out what we wanted and needed there, Fred, with that conversation.
Okay. Okay.
It's, as I say, it's always a wonderful pleasure and privilege to chat with you. You've known each other a long time now. But I know. Well, I'm sorry.
I appreciate your authenticity. The authenticity of your questions has us both thinking of things that we didn't know we were going to say.
Mm.
And rather than having some formula, and I don't give a shit about Tiger's legacy, or will Scotty Scheffler be able to keep it up? Those are all great guys and great golfers, but in the world I live, it doesn't matter. Yeah. So I appreciate what you bring to this.
Yeah. Thanks ever so much, Fred, and promise me we can have another conversation in another 12 months' time.
Okay, to be continued.
To be continued.